I knew my world was ending when I caught myself laughing at the divorce papers. Not because anything was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I knew the next sound I'd make would be something closer to a scream. Or maybe a prayer. Or both. The sun hadn't even risen yet when I sat alone at my tiny kitchen table in Portland, Oregon, staring at the signature that ended 5 years of my life. Elijah Pierce. The name looked foreign now, like it belonged to a stranger wearing my face, my memories, my shame. The papers felt cold despite the heat humming from the old radiator in the corner. I kept rereading the line that made it final, as if one more glance could change any of it. Derek Shepard had left me. Or, if I wanted to be painfully precise, my alpha husband had thrown away everything we built and walked straight into the arms of a newer, softer, sweeter Omega. A young man named Mason, who still had college dreams in his eyes and that damn innocent glow Derek always pretended he didn't crave. And I, Elijah, stood there watching it all crumble like someone observing their own house burn down from across the street. What hurt wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was the terrifying realization that somewhere along the way, Derek had stopped seeing me entirely. Like loving me had once been a burning wildfire, only to cool into ashes he swept aside without even noticing the heat still rising from them. My phone buzzed. Again. It was my sister. For the 13th time this week. I didn't pick up. Instead, I walked to the window, watching the early morning quiet settle across the street. Snow clung to the sidewalks. Frost blurred the edges of passing headlights. A dog barked somewhere. The world kept moving even though mine felt like it had splintered into pieces too small to gather. I wasn't sure how long I stood there. 5 minutes. An hour. Enough time for grief to shift shape inside my chest, becoming something sharper, something that made breathing harder. Someone knocked on my door. I didn't move. Not until the voice followed. Eli? Hey man. You alive in there? Nate, my neighbor. He was 22, loud, chaotic, and the kind of Omega who flirted with every bartender within a 5-mile radius. He also had terrible timing. I'm fine, I called out, even though it sounded more like a lie than I meant it to. Bullshit, Nate answered instantly. Let me in. I brought muffins. I sighed and opened the door. Nate stood there with a small paper box and his usual messy blonde hair sticking out beneath his beanie. His smile faded the second he saw my face. Oh, damn. So it's really over. It's been over, I said quietly. The papers just made it official. He handed me the box. Well, here, blueberry. They fix nothing, but they taste good while you're falling apart. For the first time in hours, I nearly smiled. Nate stepped inside, looked around, and frowned at the empty counters, the half-packed boxes, the lingering scent of lemon cleaner. So, what's the plan? I'm leaving Portland, I said. I can't stay here. He nodded slowly. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere different. Somewhere quiet. Maybe somewhere I can think without running into him every 3 blocks. He nodded as if he'd expected that. Sometimes burning bridges gives you light to walk by, he murmured. My grandma said that. I snorted. Your grandma was an arsonist. Exactly, he said proudly. Woman knew things. I appreciated the joke more than I should have. After Nate left, I sat alone again, eating a muffin that tasted like sugar and grief. Eventually, I opened my laptop and started searching for towns that weren't Portland, weren't familiar, weren't tainted by memories of Derek's hands in mine or his promises whispering lies down my spine. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I clicked through listings as if something would call to me. And it did. A small riverside town in northern Washington. A place called Silverbrook. Population. Small. Weather rainy. Housing cheap. Crime low. General vibe. Quiet. Scenic. Potentially healing. A house was available on the edge of the river. Old. Simple. Affordable even after the divorce cleaned out my savings. Without giving myself time to second guess, I sent an inquiry. 3 days later, I packed my life into the back of my car and drove north until the world changed. Silverbrook felt like a place painted with soft colors. Wooden houses. mist curling over the water, pines tall enough to scrape the clouds. It was the opposite of Portland's noise, its constant reminders, its ghosts. But I didn't expect to feel something else here. Something unsettling. Something alive. And I absolutely didn't expect him. The man I'd later learn was named Rafael Navarro. I first saw him while I was dragging a box out of the trunk on my first morning in Silverbrook. The sun had just risen, burning gold through the fog. The river shimmered as if holding secrets beneath its surface. And there he was, standing at the edge of my new yard, holding a thermos of coffee and wearing a worn leather jacket that hugged his broad shoulders perfectly. His dark hair was slightly damp, probably from the morning mist. His eyes, deep brown and expressive, flicked to me with a mixture of curiosity and warmth. He wasn't smiling, not exactly, but something in his expression felt like a gentle invitation. "New in town?" he asked, voice low and warm like something meant to wrap around you. I swallowed. "That obvious?" He glanced at the trunk full of boxes. "Just a little." "I'm Elijah," I said. "Raphael," he replied, stepping closer and offering a hand. When our palms touched, something electric flickered between us. Not overwhelming, not sharp, just noticeable, like a spark awakening after a long winter. "You picked a good spot," Raphael said, glancing toward the river. "Peaceful, quiet, perfect if you're trying to disappear." My chest tightened. "I'm not disappearing, just starting over." He nodded, as if he understood far more than I'd said aloud. Silverbrook had a strange sort of magic resting in its silence, and in the days that followed, I fell into a new rhythm. Mornings drinking coffee on the porch, evenings listening to the river breathe, nights where the loneliness felt gentler than before, softened by distance and fresh air. Then came the storm. A thick winter storm rolled in one night, wind howling like it carried every regret I'd ever had. The power flickered, the temperature dropped, and just as I was searching for extra blankets, there was a loud knock at my door. I opened it to find Raphael, soaked from the rain, breathless, and shivering. "The power grid on this side of town is down," he said. "Your fireplace won't be enough to keep you warm tonight. Come stay at my place." I blinked. I'll be fine." He frowned, stepping closer. "Elijah, it's freezing. Pride isn't worth hypothermia." I should have protested. I had known this man for barely a week, but there was something in his tone, something protective yet gentle, something that asked without demanding. So I grabbed a coat and followed him through the storm. His house was warm, filled with the scent of cedar and something faintly sweet. He made tea. He handed me a blanket. He apologized unnecessarily for the mess even though everything looked painfully tidy. And when the wind rattled the windows, he looked at me with an expression so careful, so heavy with something unspoken, that I felt my heartbeat trip over itself. He wasn't Derek. He wasn't anyone I'd known before. He didn't look at me like someone trying to mold me into a fantasy or salvageability. He looked at me like someone trying to see me, really see me, even if it took time. "What brought you here?" he asked quietly, sipping his tea, eyes never leaving mine. "A divorce," I said, "and a need to breathe again." He nodded. "Sometimes leaving is the bravest thing." "I didn't leave," I whispered. "He did." Raphael set his mug down slowly. "Then surviving it is the bravest thing." The storm raged outside, but somehow the quiet between us felt louder, like a conversation spoken in another language, something understood without words. For the first time since Derek walked away, I didn't feel broken. I felt beginning, and maybe that terrified me more than anything, because beginnings were dangerous. They carried hope, and I didn't know what to do with hope anymore. But Raphael didn't push, didn't rush, didn't try to fill the silence with empty comfort. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly brushed, and let the quiet be a bridge instead of a wall. When I finally drifted to sleep on his couch, wrapped in the warmth of his home, I realized something unsettling. For the first time since the divorce, the ache in my chest wasn't the loudest thing inside me. Something new was growing. Something frightening. Something gentle. Something that felt like the first breath after drowning. Something that felt a lot like him. Raphael woke me just before dawn, though I didn't realize it at first. I felt a hand on my shoulder, warm and steady, guiding me gently out of sleep. The storm had eased, leaving behind a deep quiet that felt almost unreal. My eyes opened to the soft yellow glow of a lamp and Raphael kneeling beside the couch. His hair still slightly damp, his expression unreadable. "Morning," he said softly. His voice was lower than usual, rough with sleep, and for a moment I wondered if I was still dreaming. "Sorry to wake you, but the power came back on and I figured you'd want to get home before the snow melts into ice." I pushed myself upright, the blanket sliding off my shoulders. "I didn't mean to fall asleep on your couch." He shook his head. "You needed rest." Then his gaze softened, the corners of his mouth lifting just barely. "You look better." I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I felt better, maybe, or maybe it was simply that being in Raphael's home felt like stepping into a pocket of warmth carved out from the cold. I didn't want to admit that out loud. I stood, brushing my hands through my hair. "Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me," he said. "You needed help. People had helped me before, of course, my sister, my friends, but something about Raphael's help felt different. Unburdened, not pitying, not intrusive, just present." He walked me to the door where the early morning light spilled across the snow. The storm had left the world white and glistening. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit my lungs but no longer felt violent. More like a clean slate. "Drive safe," Raphael said behind me. I turned back. "I will." And maybe I imagined it, or maybe I was still half asleep, but for a brief second, I felt something hanging between us. Something trembling. Something that might have been a beginning if either of us dared to reach for it. But I didn't, and neither did he. Not yet. For the next few days, life in Silverbrook settled into a rhythm that felt new but strangely comfortable. The snow melted slowly, dripping from the rooftops and forming small rivers along the sidewalks. I unloaded the rest of my boxes. I found a small diner called Maples that made terrible coffee but incredible pancakes. I met the mailman, an older Omega named Gerald who seemed to know every secret in town but kept them behind a polite half-smile. And, without planning to, I kept running into Raphael. I saw him at the grocery store buying apples and pasta. I saw him near the river where he watched the water as if it whispered something only he could hear. I saw him repairing a fence near the edge of town, sleeves pushed up, revealing forearms that looked carved from quiet strength. But every time I ran into him, something tightened inside me. Not fear, not nerves, something more complicated. Something that felt like the slow unfurling of a bruise you didn't realize you'd been carrying, showing color as it healed. On the fourth day, he invited me to grab dinner. I hadn't expected it. I had been walking home from Maples, bundled in a scarf and coat, and he was leaning against the railing near the pier, watching the sun sink behind the tree line. The sky was a mess of pink and purple. The river reflected it like spilled paint. He turned when he heard my footsteps. "Elijah." His voice did something to me every time he said my name. Something unsettling. "Hey," I said, stopping beside him. "You eaten yet?" Raphael asked. I blinked. I was just heading home, probably going to heat up leftovers. "Come eat with me instead." It wasn't said casually. There was an intention in it, a weight, like he was offering something more than a meal, a moment, a place at his table, piece of himself. I swallowed. "Sure. Yeah. That sounds good." He smiled, then small but real. "Good." He led me to a little restaurant I'd never noticed, tucked between a bookstore and a florist. The sign read Harbor House Kitchen, and the warm yellow light spilling from its windows made it feel like a haven. Inside, the smell of herbs and roasted vegetables filled the air. The hostess greeted Raphael by name, and he introduced me without hesitation, as if my presence mattered to him. We sat in a booth near the back, where the view of the river framed the window like a moving painting. Raphael ordered salmon. I ordered the stew, and for the first few minutes we ate in silence, not awkward, but comfortable. Until he spoke. You mentioned you were married. My breath caught. I did. You don't have to talk about it, he said quickly. But if you want to, I'll listen. I stared at the steam rising from my bowl. Derek and I were together for 5 years, I said. Married for 3. We met young. Fell fast. Ignored the warning signs. You know how it goes. I do, Raphael said softly. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I continued. He needed someone soft. Someone who needed him. Someone he could shape. I tried to be that for him. For a long time. But eventually he realized I wasn't what he wanted. And he found someone who was. Raphael's jaw tightened. That's not on you. It feels like it is. It shouldn't. I looked up. His eyes held something fierce. Protective. Angry on my behalf. Did you love him? He asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I think I loved who I thought he was. Raphael nodded, understanding more than I expected. People leave, he said. Sometimes because they're lost. Sometimes because they're cowards. But when they do, it tells you more about them than it ever does about you. I let that settle inside me. Felt too true. Too sharp. What about you? I asked. Anyone ever break your heart? He leaned back, gaze drifting out the window. For a long time he didn't speak. Then, yeah, once. Omega, I guessed. No, he said. Alpha. I blinked. That surprised me. I hadn't expected that. We were together a long time, he said. He had a temper. I had a habit of forgiving too much. One day I realized I didn't like the person I was becoming around him. So I left. Was it hard? Raphael gave a humorless laugh. The hardest thing I've ever done. But staying would have destroyed me. We fell quiet again, but it wasn't heavy. It felt shared, like we had carved out a small place in the world where honesty could breathe freely. When the waitress brought dessert bread, pudding warm enough to melt the cold from your bones, we ate it from the same plate without speaking. Raphael didn't comment when my spoon knocked gently against his. He only smiled, faint and unguarded. Walking home afterward, the cold nipped at our cheeks, but something warm lingered between us. Raphael walked beside me without rushing, his hands in his pockets, his breath visible in small clouds. Elijah, he said when we reached my house. I'm glad you came to dinner. I looked at him. The porch light illuminated his face, softening the shadows, warming the edges of his eyes. Me too, I said honestly. He hesitated as if deciding something. Then he nodded once, slow. Good night. Good night, Raphael. He turned, walking down the path, and I felt something in my chest shift, like a frozen river beginning to crack, like ice learning how to melt. I didn't sleep easily that night, not because of nightmares, because something new was unfolding, and I didn't know how to hold it yet. The next morning, I found a note taped to my door. You free today? Meet me at the workshop, Raphael. Beneath it was a small hand-drawn map with a red X marking a location near the edge of town. I stared at it for a full minute before grabbing my coat. The workshop was a converted barn with wide-open doors and the smell of wood and oil curling through the air. Inside, sunlight streamed in through high windows, illuminating dust particles that danced like tiny ghosts. Tools lined the walls. Wooden furniture in various stages of completion rested on workbenches. Raphael stood near the center, sleeves rolled up, a pair of safety goggles pushed into his hair. He looked different here, more grounded, more comfortable, more himself. You came, he said, smiling. You left a note on my door. Hard to ignore. He chuckled. Fair enough. He gestured to a half-built table. I could use a hand if you're willing. I don't know anything about woodworking. Perfect, he said. Then you won't overthink. He showed me how to sand the edges, how to hold the wood steady, how to feel the grain beneath my fingertips. His hands brushed mine more than once, and every time, a spark ran up my spine. Not overwhelming, not frightening, just real. We worked in easy silence. Every now and then, Raphael told me stories about the old man who taught him carpentry, about the summer the river flooded, about the time a raccoon stole his breakfast right off his porch. He laughed more than I'd heard him laugh before. And I realized something startling. Raphael wasn't quiet because he was distant. He was quiet because he paid attention. He watched the world with intention, with care, with a softness he didn't flaunt but carried like a hidden lantern. At one point, he guided my hands to help me carve a line smoother. His chest brushed my back. His breath warmed the curve of my ear. My pulse stuttered. I stepped back quickly, trying to hide the reaction. Raphael noticed, of course he did, but he didn't say anything. He only adjusted the clamp on the table and continued working. By late afternoon, the table was finished, and I felt strangely proud of it. Raphael stood beside me, surveying our work with a satisfied nod. "Not bad for your first try," he said. I shook my head, laughing softly. "You did most of it. You were here," he said. "That counts." The simplicity of that sentence shouldn't have hit me so hard. But it did. We cleaned up the workshop, and just as I was about to leave, Raphael spoke quietly. "There's a winter festival in town tomorrow night," he said. "Lights, music, food. I usually go alone." I turned to him. "Are you asking me to go with you?" His eyes flicked to mine, warm and steady. "Yeah," he said. "I am." My heart beat once, hard. "Okay," I said. "I'll go." His smile was small, but real. Real in a way that felt like the first promise I could maybe trust again. As I left the workshop, snow began to fall in slow, delicate flakes, landing softly on my coat. The world felt quiet, suspended, like something important was shifting just beneath the surface. And for the first time since Derek shattered the life I thought I wanted, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, but not the reckless kind. Not the blinding kind. A quieter hope. A warmer one. A hope shaped like two hands brushing in a workshop filled with sunlight and sawdust. A hope shaped like Raphael. The winter festival was alive in a way Silverbrook had never seemed before. Strings of golden lights hung from every tree and lamp post, the river reflecting them like liquid fire. Music floated in the air, soft jazz and folk songs mingling with laughter and the crunch of snow under boots. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts, cinnamon, and the faint tang of the river. Raphael found me near the ice skating rink, holding my gloves awkwardly and trying to ignore the fact that I had no idea how to skate. He was already on skates, moving effortlessly, looking impossibly handsome as always. His dark eyes met mine, and for a second, the world narrowed to just the two of us. "You sure about this?" he asked, his tone teasing, though the warmth in his eyes gave away that he was just as nervous as I was. "I'll survive," I said, trying to sound confident. My voice shook just slightly. He reached out a hand. "Come on, then. I won't let you fall." I took it, and the moment our hands touched, something electric, gentle but undeniable, passed between us. Not like a spark, more like the quiet settling of a storm. We skated together, me wobbling and clinging, him steady and patient. He guided me, sometimes holding me close enough that I could feel the steady beat of his chest against mine. Every brush of his sleeve against my arm, every near fall he steadied, felt intimate in a way that left me dizzy. By the time we left the rink, snowflakes had begun to fall again, dusting our hair and coats. We walked slowly toward the center of the festival, lights reflecting in our eyes. People bustled around, but we were in a bubble of our own making, quiet, intimate, and fragile. Raphael stopped near the riverbank, pulling his scarf tighter around his neck. "Elijah," he said softly, voice low, "I need to tell you something." I froze. My chest tightened. My mind screamed all the warnings I had carried for years. Don't trust. Don't hope. Don't love. But his eyes were warm and unwavering. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, closing the small distance between us. "I know you've been hurt," he said. "I know someone left a mark you didn't ask for. But I can't ignore this. What's happening here?" My stomach lurched. "Raphael." He reached up, brushing a lock of hair from my forehead, his thumb lingering against my skin. I don't want to rush you. I want you to know I care. More than I should. More than I expected. But I do. The world felt suspended, the snowflakes frozen mid-air around us. I swallowed, heart pounding, trying to catch my voice. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, he whispered. Just be here with me. And I did. Because for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel broken. I felt alive. We walked to the festival's small carousel. The horses were painted in bright colors, their eyes wide and cheerful. Raphael held my hand as we chose a bench on the edge, the carousel spinning with laughter and music surrounding us. I never thought I'd feel safe again, I admitted quietly. After everything with Derek, after feeling like nothing could matter anymore. He turned toward me, his expression serious. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to feel alive. You deserve someone who chooses you. Every day. My throat tightened. And you're choosing me? His smile was small, almost shy. Yeah, I am. The carousel turned slowly, lights reflecting on the river, on our hands, on everything that had felt cold and impossible for so long. I could feel the warmth of Raphael's presence anchoring me, a steadying force I hadn't realized I needed so desperately. Later, when the festival fireworks began, we found a spot near the riverbank. The sky lit up in bursts of red, gold, and green, echoing in the water beneath us. Raphael's hand was wrapped around mine, fingers entwined naturally, like they were meant to be there. You've changed something in me, I said softly. Something I thought was frozen forever. He turned his head toward me, eyes reflecting the fireworks. And you've changed me too, Elijah. More than you know. I smiled. The sound felt foreign, fragile, but true. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that maybe love wasn't just a wound waiting to reopen. Maybe it could be a healing. Maybe it could be this. The fireworks ended, leaving the sky dark and calm again. Raphael drew me close, our foreheads touching. I don't know what the future holds, he murmured, but I want to face it with you, if you'll have me. I laughed softly, a sound full of relief and disbelief. I thought I'd never feel ready again. You don't have to be ready, he said, voice warm and reassuring. You just have to be willing to try. I closed my eyes, letting the snow settle on my lashes, letting the quiet of Silverbrook and the warmth of Raphael's presence fill every hollow I had carried from the past. I'll try, I whispered, and in that moment nothing else mattered. Not the pain Derek left behind. Not the doubts that had haunted me. Not the fear that love could hurt again. Because Raphael was here. He was real. He was patient. He was kind. And for the first time, I felt the possibility of something beautiful, something lasting. We stayed by the river long after the festival ended, talking about everything and nothing, about small towns, about carpentry, about dreams that didn't feel impossible anymore, about a future we could shape together if we dared to believe in it. Weeks turned into months. Silverbrook's winter gave way to spring, and our bond grew quietly, steadily. Raphael's presence became a constant in my life-me-safe harbor after the storms, and I realized slowly that I had stopped mourning Derek in the way that consumed every waking thought. I remembered him sometimes, the betrayal, the heartbreak, but those memories no longer defined me. They were a part of my story, yes, but they weren't the story anymore. The story now was us. On one of those warm spring evenings, we sat by the river again, feet in the water, the sunset painting our faces with gold. Raphael brushed a strand of hair from my forehead, as he had on the night of the festival, and leaned closer. Elijah, he said, voice soft, eyes warm. I can't promise life will always be easy, but I can promise you this. I'll be here, with you, through everything. I smiled, my heart full in a way I hadn't thought possible. And I'll be here too, I whispered. We kissed then, gentle at first, tasting the air between us, savoring the closeness, the trust, the warmth. It wasn't a rush. It wasn't desperation. It was a beginning, a true beginning. And in Raphael's arms, I finally felt whole again. The river whispered beside us. The town glimmered in the fading light, and the world, despite everything, felt like it had finally opened a door worth walking through. I had lost an alpha once, but I had found a love entirely new. And this time I wasn't letting go. If you want, I can also merge all 3 parts, 5,000 words, into a single, polished document ready for reading, with continuous formatting and prompts for illustration at the top. This will make it a full, uninterrupted story. Banda noi. Cho toi 1002 koi kung chat GPT de noi. Dui de la 1002 koi kung qua ka chuyen. Dua mok trien den chao treo va ket tuk nain hang. Han fuck, jungwin fong catch gay love lang man. Kich tin. Boi kan mai. Jong van mai chuan. Jiao kem suk va lang man. The night of the winter festival arrived, and Silverbrook had transformed into something magical. The small town sparkled with strings of golden lights wrapped around lamp posts and trees, reflecting in the icy surface of the river. The smell of roasted chestnuts, hot cocoa, and cinnamon wafted through the crisp air, mingling with laughter, music, and the occasional bark of a dog enjoying the snow. I stood near the ice skating rink, clutching my gloves and trying to appear confident. I wasn't confident, not at all. Skating had never been my strong suit, and the thought of falling off looking foolish in front of Raphael made my stomach churn. And yet, when I saw him waiting, his dark eyes scanning the rink until they landed on me, I felt something strange. Anticipation, curiosity, maybe even hope. "You're late," he said, his voice teasing, but soft enough that it made me smile despite my nerves. "I'm not late," I lied, though my knees threatened to give out at any moment. "You sure about this?" he asked, extending a hand toward me. "I can hold you up if you want." I stared at his hand for a moment before taking it, and the instant our fingers intertwined, the world seemed to shrink around us. A warm, grounding electricity passed between us, quiet, steady, undeniable. Skating with Raphael was a revelation. He was patient, guiding me carefully, steadying me when my balance faltered. The close proximity made my heart race, each brush of his sleeve against my arm sending tremors through me. There was an intimacy in those moments, silent but electric, that left me dizzy with a sensation I hadn't felt in years. By the time we left the rink, snowflakes had begun to fall again, gentle and delicate. Raphael walked beside me, our hands brushing until they fit together naturally. I wanted to speak, to voice the whirlwind of emotions I felt, but words failed me. Instead, we wandered through the festival. Music floated through the crisp air, lights twinkled, and couples passed by, laughing, warm in their shared intimacy. We found ourselves at the center of the festival, where a carousel spun slowly, horses painted in vivid colors dancing in their eternal circle. Raphael led me to a bench nearby. "You look different here," I said softly, glancing at him. "Happy, I mean," he smiled, a small, shy curve of his lips that made my chest tighten. "I am happy," he admitted. "With you here I feel lighter." I swallowed, heart pounding. I don't think I've felt light in years. Maybe never. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. "Elijah, I know you've been hurt. I know someone left a mark you didn't ask for. But I can't ignore Thesis. What's happening here? Care about you. More than I thought possible." I froze, the warmth of his hand on my skin sending waves through me. "Raphael." He stepped closer, forehead nearly touching mine. "I'm not asking for anything rushed. I just want you to know. And if you feel anything at all, you don't have to hide it from me." The world felt suspended. Snowflakes hovered midair, the carousel lights reflected in the river, and for the first time, the ache of the past seemed to soften. I don't know what to say," I whispered. "Then say nothing," he murmured. "Just be here with me." I was here. I was present. And for the first time in years, I felt alive, unbroken, untethered from the ghosts of the past. We stayed together through the festival, laughter and music filling the space between us. We shared small bites of festival treats, our hands brushing occasionally, every touch electric and tender. When the fireworks finally began, Raphael led me to the riverbank. The sky exploded in colors: reds, golds, green sand. The reflection shimmered across the water. "You've changed something in me," I admitted quietly, my voice barely audible over the pop and crackle of the fireworks. "Something I thought was frozen forever." He turned to me, eyes warm and steady, reflecting the fireworks. "And you've changed me, Elijah, more than you realize." I smiled, the sound breaking through my caution, fragile and tentative. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that love could be gentle, safe, and real. The fireworks ended, leaving the sky dark and calm. Raphael drew me close, our foreheads touching. "I can't promise life will always be easy," he murmured, voice soft. "But I can promise this. I'll be here, with you, through everything." "I'll be here too," I whispered. And then, finally, we kissed. Gentle at first, savoring the closeness, the warmth, the trust. Not a desperate kiss. Not a hurried one. A kiss that felt like a beginning, steady and sure. Weeks passed, and winter gave way to spring. Our bond deepened quietly but undeniably. Raphael became my anchor, my safe harbor, my home. I thought of Derek less and less, the pain fading into memory rather than controlling my present. Life felt lighter, brighter. One evening, we sat by the river, legs dangling over the water. The sunset painted our faces with gold, and I felt at peace in a way I hadn't in years. "Raphael," I said softly, leaning into him, "I never thought I could feel whole again." "You are whole," he said gently, brushing my hair from my forehead. "I just helped you see it." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "Then, stay with me," I whispered. He leaned in, lips pressing to mine in a kiss that was tender, sure, and lasting. I rested my hands on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my fingers. "Always," he said against my lips. The river whispered beside us. The town glimmered in fading light, and the world felt open and infinite. I had lost an alpha once, but I had found someone entirely new, someone who chose me, every day. And this time I wasn't letting go. The snow had melted, the lights had dimmed, but something enduring remained. Us. Real, steady, undeniable. A love born from brokenness, tempered by patience, and blossoming into a future I could finally believe in. I nestled closer to Raphael, letting the warmth of his body seep into mine. The past, the pain, the loss, they were part of me, but they no longer defined me. The story now was us, and for the first time I knew it was safe to hope, safe to love, safe to begin again, because Raphael was here, and I was finally home. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.